Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Omar Harris. I'm back with another video. So what I wanted to discuss is that the first video that I made was let's talk about the dating scene among single Christian men, single Christian women. So I wanted to do a follow-up video on that. So some things that I want to touch on with this video is that I want to kind of touch on a recent conversation that I had with a friend of mine who attends my congregation. I also want to touch on one of the one of the classes that I facilitated for a Christian single seminar a couple years back, and then I want to close the video out with a follow-up conversation that I've had with that individual who just recently had got married. Shout out to Chanel Kofer. She's somebody that I've been knowing for a long time that goes to my congregation, somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and that I value her opinion when it comes down to certain things. And I remember that me and her were having a conversation around this time last year, right? And one of the things that I mentioned to her is that I tend to, at my age, I'm 37 years old. Last year, this time I was 36. So as a man, as a single man, when you're, between mid to late 30s, um, I tend to run into four types of women, right? Single women at that. So the first type will be the women that has one child, and this is a child from a previous relationship. And me knowing that women that's around my age, that's within my age bracket, chances are they may have been in some type of whether it be long term relationship, want to be a prior previous marriage, things like that, and may have at least one child. So if a woman who has never been married but have had a child, just one kid, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. That is something that, mentally and emotionally that I could deal with. So that wouldn't be potentially a deal breaker. So that would be somebody that would be suitable as far as somebody that I will pursue. Now, I know that there has to be I will of course do my research and kind of find out more about the situation as far as how old is the child, how long has it been since she had relations with the father, how um, how much is the father's in that child's life, things like that prior to moving forward, pursuing something with that particular woman. So that's usually the first type of woman. The second type is the ones who have multiple kids. And if she has two or more kids, then that's a deal breaker for me, just right out the gate. Personally, I don't have any children. So the fact that if I'm not bringing that type of sand to the beach, then what will be the purpose of me signing up for like an instant family where I'm, responsible for taking care of another man's kids? So that'd be too much of a responsibility for me to handle. So I'd much rather prefer to have my own children as it pertains to taking care of somebody else's kids. So that will definitely be a deal breaker for me. Now, I'm not to trying to throw shade on women who are maybe in that specific category, but that's just my personal preference, right? So the third type of women is that the women who are attracted to me, but I'm not attracted to them. And guys, you know how hard of a struggle this is because you would think that if a woman's particularly attracted to you, that if you're not attracted to her, it's not gonna go. It's not gonna go far. And that just kind of shows you how looks does play a part or play a major play a particular part when it comes down to stuff like this. Now, looks isn't the end all be all, right? Because the book of Proverbs say that beauty is fleeting, right? Eventually, we all going to lose our looks to a certain degree. So we got to make sure that we're working on those other qualities that's able to sustain a relationship because you have to be able to click with somebody personality wise, and you got to have the same type of common values and goals that other person may have. Otherwise, relationship is going to fizzle out. So there are other things that you need to take into consideration other than looks. Now, for those of you who are married, right? You, especially when it comes down to the men, because we're visual. So there was something about your spouse, there was something about your wife that you liked physically, whether it be that she had a nice skin tone, skin complexion, you liked her eyes, she had a pretty smile, she had you liked the way her body was shaped, figure wise, she had a nice figure. There was something about her physically that attracted you in the first place to make you want to get to know her more on an intimate setting. So looks do play a role, but that's not the end all be all. But it just goes to show you that you guys can click in other different areas, but if the attraction is not mutual, then chances are it's not going to go further than where you may want it to go. Now, last but not least, the last type of women that I happen to come across will be the women who pretty much are in the same boat that I am. Never been married, don't have any kids. On paper, it seemed like we'll be a good match, right? On paper. But in reality, these women are not emotionally available to be in a relationship with you. They're either dealing with some type of past trauma, childhood trauma. They're dealing with some type of daddy issue, mommy issue. They may be jaded from previous relationships that didn't go well, and that and they feel as though they're not emotionally ready to be in another relationship. And that's a shame because you may feel yourself wanting to be with these women, but they don't necessarily feel the same way about you in that particular moment. So that's those are some of the things that I discussed with Chanel as far as some of the challenges that I've personally come across when it comes to being a single man in this dating scene. So that's the first thing that I wanted to touch on. Now, the next thing I want to touch on was a topic that I had a chance of facilitating for the National Christian Single Seminar. So this is the front of the pamphlet right here. This was 2 years ago here in Vegas. National Christian Single Seminar, where we had single Christians from all over the country come to this seminar. And as you can see, there's a picture of me, and it had a little bit of a bio right there. And the topic that I was given was called. Um, Let me see what the topic was: friendship and dating, and how we ought to set boundaries for celibacy. Right. So just to kind of give you uh, uh, a taste as far as what some of the things we discussed. The first thing we talked about was in 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14 through 18, where we were discussing not being unequally yoked with unbelievers, right? What does light have to do with darkness? What does righteousness have to do with unrighteousness? Being unequally yoked. And one of the points that I made was that somebody that has a relationship with Christ, one thing that Christ gives us is discernment. We're able to see things, and even though that we don't have the ability or the power to predict what's going to happen in the future, to know what's going to happen in the future, we have the discernment to be able to see that what we're seeing is a preview of what's to come. That can give us an indicator of how things are going to turn out. And so one of the practical examples that I gave as it pertains to the women, it was that if you're a woman and you happen to meet a guy that was immature, irresponsible, and that was a mama's boy when you met him, chances are he's going to be immature, irresponsible, and a mama's boy 15, 20, 25 years from now. But here's the thing is that you have some women who believe that they are so special that they're able to change this particular man to be the man that they want them to be. And a lot of times it ends up backfiring because at the end of the day, you can't change anybody. I don't have the power to change anybody. You don't have the power to change anybody. People are going to be who they're going to be. The only person that's going to change, it's up to them if they want to change. It's not going to be up to us. And we find ourselves frustrated because the people that we choose, we want to try to change them to be what we think they should be, and they may not necessarily want it bad enough for themselves. So that puts you in a tight spot because if you tend to marry this person, now you stuck with this individual. So you have the foresight and you have the discernment to know to where you can make a decision. Is this something I want to continue on, or do I need to cut this off and go a different direction? So that was one of the first things that we discussed. Another scripture that we had looked into was First Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 1 through 7, where it talks about how we should abstain from fornication, that we are a vessel that's used for sanctification, right? And so one of the things that we touched on there was this whole friends with benefits. We know that that is something that both those that are in the church as well as outside the church, that's the type of lifestyle that they're engaging in. Friends with benefits. You have a single man, you have a single woman, and they're using each other sexually. They're using each other to get their rocks off, so to speak, but they don't want to be exclusive in an exclusive relationship, and definitely not something that's going to lead down to marriage down the road. So it's something that's in a matter of convenience for both individuals. But here's the thing: you don't know how that's going to turn out because number one, if you have a friends with benefits relationship, one of the two parties is going to catch feelings. Somebody's going to fall in love. Somebody's going to like somebody more than the other, and you're setting yourself up to get hurt. Number one. Number two, y'all fooling around or whatever. What if the woman gets pregnant? Now your so-called temporary situation that you think you had under control, now look what comes into play. Now there's a permanent situation that comes into play now. So now what do you do from that perspective? So you see how things can kind of turn out the way that you didn't anticipate it to be? Number one, if you're fornicating, that's already a no-go in God's standpoint anyway. And number two, once you bring a child into this world, that changes the whole dynamic. So as much as many people may say, oh, this is something that's convenient, this is something that's casual for people to do, that's not the way that you should live your life. And the last thing we touched on was Colossians chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, where it talks about putting off the old man and putting on a new man. Your old way of life, your old bad habits, the way that you thought, you put away that man and put on a new man, which is renewed by Christ. So one of the things that we talked about was, what is your purpose? What's your purpose of friendship? What's the purpose of even having friends? What is your purpose of dating? Are you dating to get to know people? To generally get to know people? Are you dating with the intent on marriage as the result? Are you one of those people that likes to casually date 3, 4 people at the same time? Or are you dating just to hook up? What is your purpose to date? And you have to be honest. That's one of these questions where you have to really be honest with yourself. We also looked into how we discussed whether or not men and women can be friends. Can a man and a woman be just friends? Can't they enjoy each other's company from a platonic standpoint? Or is there always going to be some attraction or some sexual tension between the two? How would you be able to tell, and how would you be able to know the difference between the two? So those were some things that we discussed. And then after we discussed those things, we had went into like a fun little exercise where we would ask some questions like, have you ever been put in the friend zone? Men, have a woman ever put you in the friend zone? Women, have a guy ever put you in the friend zone? Why do you think you was put in the friend zone to begin with? Now for us men, it's one or two reasons. Number one, Either she gave us a green light and we were too passive to move up on that. So then she figured out, okay, well, I lost interest. Or she wasn't physically attracted to us in one way, shape, or form, whether we wasn't the right skin complexion, whether we didn't have the right body build. She thought we was too skinny. She thought maybe we was too a little bit too big for her. Maybe we wasn't as tall as she would like us to be, right? We also talked about, have you ever put somebody in the friend zone? What was the reason why you put that person in the friend zone? I know for me specifically, the reason why I would put a woman in the friend zone, number one, if I'm not physically attracted to her, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not being physically attracted to somebody. That's not a sin to not be physically attracted to somebody, because you can't be attracted to everybody. That's just not the way that we're wired. Or she may be somebody that has dated or been in a relationship with one of my friends. So that's almost like a unspoken rule that us guys, it's like a guy code thing what we follow. If she has dated or a relationship with a male family member of mine or one of my good friends, then there's no reason for me to pursue something with that, because that can create problems later on down the road. Then we also talked about what are some techniques or what are some ways that we can minimize being put in the friend zone, right? So we talk, what are some things that you can do to lower your chance of getting put in the friend zone? How about making our intentions known out the gate? Even if we get turned down and get told no, at least you know how we felt, right? Maybe expanding our social circle to where we're able to be able to meet women that are outside our so normal social circle. Things like that. So those are all some things that we kind of covered. And the people, a lot of the singles, they enjoyed the class so much that we end up having a follow up dialogue later on that evening, to where we were talking about some of the issues and stuff dating wise. And what I came to find out is that there were some women who admitted that I may have overlooked certain guys who may have been a better fit for me, or they may have chosen the wrong person to be with in the first place. So it all comes back to accountability on our part. If we're having a lot of these issues that we're having, it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, it's them, it's them, it's you. But how often do we look in the mirror and say, you know what, I got to take the blame for some of this stuff too? If I can correct and fix some things, maybe some opportunities, some doors will open up for me, right? So that kind of goes into what we talked about, as far as with that single seminar topic that I shared. Now, before I close out the video, what I want to do is that I want to talk about like the conversation that me and Chanel had. And one of the things that Chanel had brought forth was that she had mentioned that she was in relationships, and I'm sure that she was somebody who had always saw herself being married, wanted marriage, wanted to have a family, things like that. So relationships that she was with in the past, she was hoping that that would lead down to that, but it didn't. So she ended up having to reevaluate. Like, you know what? Maybe I need to change the way that I do things. Maybe I need to consider some other qualities that I look for in a guy. Not necessarily pay attention to those physical characteristics, but more of like personality and the spiritual things, and making sure that those things lined up with what she wanted in life. And long story short, she ends up meeting her future, well, now current husband on Facebook, who lived clearly across the country. And after a few, back and forth trips, um, They decided to tie the knot, and then the rest was history. But she was able to make those. She was able to change her perspective on how she should navigate the dating scene, and the end result end up with her being married, and now she's able to start this new chapter in her life. So so that just kind of goes to show you that the sooner that we take accountability for maybe some of the things that our own shortcomings or the mistakes that we made and make those changes, God can open up some doors for us that will lead down to being in a relationship that leads to a marriage. So that's my video for today, and I will see y'all later. Peace.